Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. A former WBO champion and two high-profile PBC fighters have made their way into the latest WBO rankings update. Also, Dillian Whyte is out of these rankings as he's out of other rankings, but it's unclear in this situation if this was related to his recent win over Oscar Rivas because there was an interim world title on the line, or if in fact this is because of allegations that are swirling around him of a failed drug test or an alleged failed drug test. But I'll get to that shortly. But starting at the top here, we have at number one, and still at number one, is the WBO mandatory challenger Alexander Usyk. Usyk is set to have his first fight at heavyweight on October the 12th in Chicago. Remains to be seen who he's going to be fighting about. It's kind of been a bit of a mixed bag in terms of one day it's going to be Carlos Takam, the next it's going to be Andrei Fedosov, the next day it could be someone else. They haven't settled on a name, but they'll need to settle on someone soon because obviously Alexander Usyk is going to be fighting in 6 weeks. They need to get the opponent nailed down so Usyk can prepare adequately for whoever the opponent is. Remembering this is his first fight at heavyweight. He is the WBO mandatory challenger. That was courtesy of his cruiserweight status as super champion. So he could actually be fighting the winner of Andy Ruiz Jr. and Anthony Joshua. So he needs to have a decent first fight at heavyweight to sort of help prepare him, because that could be the first and only fight he has at heavyweight before fighting for a world title. So obviously preparation is key, getting the name nailed down, but also having a decent opponent and a decent test on October 12th. At number two, and remaining at number two, is Intercontinental WBO belt holder Tyson Fury. He's been at number two for a couple of months now since that Alexander Usyk shake-up, taking over top spot. Fury was inserted into second spot. He leapfrogged Dillian Whyte at the time, and Fury will be fighting on September 14th in Las Vegas. That will be against Otto Wan, and I think many of us believe it's going to be a pretty clear mismatch, and Fury should win that one comfortably enough. That'll do enough for him to maintain his high ranking here. At number three is Anthony Joshua. He has his rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr. nailed down for December 7th in Saudi Arabia, of all places. He is up one spot this month, and that's because Dillian Whyte has dropped out altogether, but it's a bit unclear if Whyte is out because he won the WBC interim title, which he is currently suspended from having, as well suspended having the WBO mandatory status suspended by the WBC, given this allegations that leaked out in public of an alleged failed sample ahead of his fight with Oscar Rivas. And why I say it's unclear if it's because of that or if in fact it's because of the WBC interim title fight that he won, is because the WBO has sent off mixed signals in a recent ruling which related to another matter, which was Whyte appealing against Usyk being the mandatory challenger, which the WBO threw out that appeal, denied it. But in the ruling it sort of made some comments that Whyte effectively was suspended. It didn't say it was allegations, said he was suspended for an adverse finding in a drug test taken ahead of the Rivas fight. And a line which I'll just read off here: if Whyte is permanently suspended by the WBC, the WBO Championship Committee would have ample discretion to take measures against Whyte. So some of that and a few other bits and pieces within that document did make me wonder if he's out of there, not because of the win against Oscar Rivas, which is on hold at the moment in terms of the WBC hardware that came with it, the status as an interim champion and a status as the mandatory challenger. So yeah, just don't know if what's the case, which reason he's out here altogether, but the fact he is gone altogether, and actually Dillian Whyte does not hold any rankings at the moment. So we'll have to see what happens with Whyte. But Joshua, number three, he's the beneficiary of Whyte dropping out up one spot. He'll have his rematch on December 7th. Another beneficiary is Tyrone Spong, who actually, even though he hasn't been fighting in 2019 so far, has slowly risen up the ranks here. You can see he's at number 4 now. He's up 2 spots, and he's slowly, on the back of no activity, he's been injured. He injured his hand against Yatalo Pereira the back end of 2018. He's now number 4, so seemingly he should be ripe for the picking for one of these bigger names within the heavyweight division to sort of line up a fight, and Spong will get paid. I don't actually, because of his inactivity and sort of almost going life and death with Utalo Pereira, I'm not sure that Spong, how far he can go within the division, but he is in need of a step-up fight, and given his position within the rankings now, someone will probably be eyeing him up thinking, actually, this guy might be a name. He's got a high ranking. He could be a fight that would interest a number of fighters within the division. Tyrone Spong is a big puncher, but he is still very unproven within the heavyweight division. Number 5, and this is where some of the big sort of moves within this month's ranking updates. Adam Kownacki. He was not in the rankings before this month. He is entered at number 5, so seemingly this is off the back of his win over Chris Arreola, who I must note was not ranked within the WBO ahead of that fight that they had between each other on August the 3rd in Brooklyn. So Kownacki, a high-profile PBC fighter, enters at number 5, which I was it sort of raised my eyebrows, sort of thinking, given the situation at the moment where it's seemingly the PBC and Al Heyman are sort of freezing the WBO out, you have Adam Kownacki and another high-profile PBC fighter out of nowhere entering high up these rankings. So Kownacki, number 5. Number 6, you have Junior Fa. He holds the Oriental title. His name has been bandied around for a few fights recently. Did emerge publicly that he was one of the names that was initially considered for a Tyson Fury fight. His name was connected through some sort of rumors to a potential opponent for Alexander Usyk. He is one of these guys in the heavyweight division who is definitely overdue for a step-up fight. Junior Fa is a fringe contender at best at the moment. He's got some talent, but it remains to be seen how far he can go. Moving on, the other big mover and shaker in this rankings is Luis Ortiz, another high-profile PBC fighter set to face Deontay Wilder at some point in 2019 for a rematch. He enters the rankings at number 7. So Kownacki and Luis Ortiz, and Ortiz hasn't been fighting. His last fight was against Christian Hammer. That was back in March. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, he enters at 7. Adam Kownacki, he fought Arreola, who wasn't ranked, and he's in at number 5. So, I'm a little bit perplexed as why they've entered these rankings so high here, effectively, especially Luis Ortiz having not been active more recently. But yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher. Maybe this is the WBO trying to counteract some of whatever's happening with this sort of cold war that's going on between them and PBC. At number 8, Daniel Dubois. He will be facing Ebenezer Tete in September. He's been staying active. That will be his 4th fight of the year. He holds the WBO global title. Ebenezer Tete is out of Ghana. He probably is not going to last more than a round or two. I think Daniel Dubois will get through him comfortably enough. But Daniel Dubois is a prospect who's rising into that sort of fringe contender status, doing all the right things here, staying busy, staying active. The opposition, not always the greatest, but he has fought, compared to a lot of other heavyweights in 2019, a decent stand of opposition overall. Ajit Kabayel out of Germany. He's been relatively inactive in the past year or two. He remains at number 9, but it remains to be seen what he's going to do. Hasn't had a fight this year. He's the EBU holder. Joe Joyce is his mandatory challenger. So can they get that fight made? Will it go to a purse bid? What's going to happen there? Will Kabayel drop the belt? Is he going to face Joe Joyce? Kabayel's got a lot of talent. I mean, I don't know if he's been injured or not because it's been very quiet on the sort of Kabayel front, but he just has been far too inactive. Number 10, Yevgeny Romanov. He just had a fight just over this past weekend against a journeyman, so I won't go too much into that. He remains at number 10. At number 11, this is the former WBO champion I was talking about, Joseph Parker. Re-enters the top 15 after a full year out. He dropped out after his loss to Dillian Whyte in July 2018. The WBO dropped him like a sack of potatoes off a cliff, but he's back now. He recently fought Alex Leapai in June. Yeah, it's a little bit curious that he's all of a sudden inserted at 11. Hasn't really done too much. Leapai was far from ranked. He all of a sudden inserted at number 11. At number 12, we have Michael Hunter. He remains at number 12. He's got a fight coming up against Sergey Kuzmin. That will be a good one. Number 13, Carlos Takam, who is still seemingly in the Alexander Usyk mix, potentially, at least from Carlos Takam's point of view. He's saying he's still open to it if the price is right. I mean, it's boxing after all. That always seems to be a bit of a factor here. And then you have number 14, Tom Schwartz. He had a return to the ring a week or so ago against the journeyman, came off his loss to Tyson Fury, got a win in the win column, got another fight scheduled for September in Germany. TBC on the opponent front. And at number 15, Oscar Rivas, he drops all the way from number 5 to number 15. This follows his fight against Dillian Whyte. So Oscar Rivas falls 10 places in the latest rankings update. And two others who dropped out from last month who we don't see anymore is Ali Erendemiresian. He lost to F.A. Ajagba. He had been at 11 a month ago. And Jili Zhang, he was the Chinese fighter who's been long ranked in the WBO, but inactivity seemingly taken a toll. He's been dropped down the last couple of months from a relatively high position. I believe he was as high as 5th, but he was 15th last month and gone altogether this month. He joined Kyotaro Fujimoto, similarly inactive, and he was dropped out of the rankings altogether as well a month ago. So the WBO cracking down on some inactive fighters, but also seemingly inserting some fighters very high in the rankings, like Kownacki at 5, Ortiz at 7, seemingly off the back of limited work or no work at all in terms of Luis Ortiz's case. So interesting that they've dropped in so high, and Joseph Parker as well. He's only had that recent fight against Alex Leopai to sort of get him into the top 15 here, but you could argue, was that really enough? Anyway, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.